Here's my next project, a cell phone holder. I think it'll come in handy when you're doing things like FaceTime. It'll hold it for you at the proper angle. At least I think it's the proper angle. We'll find out. It would depend upon where you stand or sit. But just some 4/4 poplar, and like I said, it's a prototype. And I've worked through some of the details, and I'll show you those. And then at the end, I'll show you or tell you about maybe some of the options you might want to do. Recently I was playing around with my box joint jig, and I was thinking that maybe I'd like to try and cut angled box joints like this. You know, it could end up being a cell phone holder. If you were to if you do a lot of FaceTime or whatever and you get tired of holding your phone out, you could rest it on this. So what I was thinking of trying was this was my first attempt at making the holder for the angled pieces. This is 30 degrees, or actually it's 60 degrees, so it angles back at 30. So it worked out okay. I mean, this is the results I got. I was like I said, I was playing around. I was a half a pin off, but it turned out all right. But the thing I found is that I had these holes here to hold my festool clamps. They were in line with each other, and that caused a problem because they would interfere when you tried to get them in here and get the clamp pressure on. So I made a new one, same principle, but I also did this. I made it bigger and pushed it out further away from the fence. Here now you can see what I'm talking about. I made it bigger. You can see how much more substantial it is. So it sticks out about an inch further, and it's also higher. And then I made all three pieces the same height, so that whatever length piece you put on here, it's going to clear. Where with this one, I had to trim it back. And what I mean by that is, as this was put on there, the first time I did this was too long, so that I had to give it clearance so I could go past that point. So this is my new version, and the other thing I found out about this version is it's not square. You know, it's reasonable, but it's not square. This one is square, and so it's slightly elevated off the table, where this one was pretty much sitting on the table. So a couple of changes there. Nothing more than a couple pieces cut on my miter saw at 30 degrees, and then just to make sure, I made sure when I glued it up everything was carefully put together, square and tight, and then you can see I've got 2 holes drilled here to mount it to my jig. So is it a one-time jig, or can it be used several times? I don't know. I'm going to find out. But I am going to try this thing here. I'm going to get some fresh pieces of poplar. I am going to cut the bottom piece. It's going to be shorter this way, so it's more like a stand. But these legs are going to extend out, at least 2 of them anyway, to hold the phone up off the table, or whatever it's sitting on. I suppose it could sit like this, but the reason I want to do that is this way it won't push it back, because it's now integrated into it. And I'm also thinking about maybe routing this out to give it a little more character, I guess. But we'll see how that all works out. My first thing is I'm just going to make the 2 pieces. And the other point I was getting at is, what other possibilities could you have for this? And immediately I thought about, well, what if you were making a pool table racks, for the billiard balls. So those are all, that's all at 60 degrees, you know, angles to get that figured out. But that, you're gonna have to do some math there. Each of the three pieces are gonna be identical. So I could maybe try that and see how that's gonna work as well. But let me cut some pieces and come right back. All right, setting my depth to cut. This is gonna be my bottom piece, which I want to extend out further. So I've set my depth to cut the width of my phone plus a little, and then the work piece underneath it as well. So I'll start with that, and then we'll dial it back down to do this piece. That worked out pretty well. The only thing I would tell you is that the first time I'm cutting through this jig, and I'll have to do it with the other one too. You know, there's a lot of resistance from that plywood, but that's a pretty nice clean cut for that piece. Yeah. All right. Plus I have to lower this down. I don't need to remove as much material, so that'll make it a little bit easier. All right, here we go. I flushed up the bottom with the block plane. So the phone sits in there pretty well. You know, I'm really thinking there's not much left to do except just soften it up. But what I want to do is this. You know, the phone itself, right, is a 90-degree angle here in the bottom. So my thought was, while this sits on there, I'm going to take my saw, cut down a little bit, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch, and then come back in here at 90 and make a little shelf. I don't want to come out the full 1/2 inch. I think that's too much. So maybe about 1/4 or so, just enough so it's got something to sit into. So you know what, it's a prototype, let's just see what happens here. Yeah, I think we'll start with that right there. And I'll just gradually pare down to that line and see how it works out. You know what, I think I gotta come out even farther. It's just catching it. I mean, I'm going to come out just a little bit more. That's much better. Now it doesn't want to kick out because there's more surface area there that it's sitting on. So now it's just a matter of dressing it up a little bit, I think. Rounding these corners here. Maybe tightening this up a little bit. And bring that down to about there. So I'm going to shorten this up down to about here. The outside dimension is good. And just round the corners to match. And I think we'll have a working prototype we can refine and make some changes to. At least we'll have something to look at that we can go off of here. Well, what do you think? It doesn't look too bad. I think that it's functional anyway, that's for sure. But I think there's some things that, you know, you could do to personalize it for yourself. I kind of like the way it looks here. Like I said, I was thinking about eliminating some of these fingers, but I kind of like that look right there. In the rounded corners, you know, soften it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I think, is going to be to make one out of some cherry that I have. And now that I know what's going on with these fingers here, I'll adjust my setup accordingly.